Hi there everyone, welcome back to the channel. So I'm continuing the journey into trying to improve the optical train on the RASA 11-inch in the observatory. And you may be seen in my recent video, or one of my recent videos, that I replaced the ZWO filter drawer and the RASA stock M48 adapter plate to the Bader UFC system. And here you can see on the screen three images, all of M101, and the first one in the top left that was taken back last year, and that was using the stock RASA plate and the ZWO filter drawer back onto the ASI 2600 camera, and you can see the heavy black vignetting around the perimeter of the image. And then I changed to the UFC filter system, and you can see that heavy blackness is significantly reduced, and this makes it a lot easier to calibrate out in the image processing. And then this most recent one, just another one at a shorter exposure. This one's actually 30 seconds, the middle one was 120 seconds, and the first one was 180 seconds. And you can see the significant change in the corners of the images. And one of the things that I still have an issue with is tilt on the camera. And this is tilt is how perpendicular the sensor is to the optical train, and this can cause stars to look oblong and out of shape basically. So when I bought the Bader UFC system, this is it here. You obviously buy the stock plates, the replacement plates to go onto the telescope, and you have various sizes of adapters. I also got the Varilock for adjusting the length of the back focus, and the filter changer, and obviously the plate to go onto the camera. Now, one of the options that I didn't get at the time was the tilt adapter, and that was because obviously the camera had a tilt plate on it, and I wanted to see first how much it was obscured before I went and ordered up the tilt plate, as it wasn't in stock at the time. At the same time I placed the main order. So the tilter looks like this, and it has got a typical push-pull arrangement on the side of the tilter, and because it's on the side and not on the front of the camera, it means you don't need to tear down the optical train or remove the camera to get access to the tilt adjustment screws that are native to the camera. So what I'm going to do today is we're going to go down to the observatory, and we're going to hopefully install the tilt plate, adjusting the back focus for the new dimensions, and then tonight, once it gets dark, if it's not cloudy, or certainly in the next couple of days, hopefully go and do some measurements and just see what improvements we have. So to get a baseline, what we're going to do is we're going to open up ASTP, and we're going to drag in some of these images. So down the right hand side, here's the three sessions, and if I pull one of the images from a year ago onto ASTAP, you can see heavy black around the edges, but we're not really interested in that just now. All we're interested in is the tilt and the images. So if we go up to tools and do image inspection, and there's two options on the left hand side of the dialog that comes up. You've got octagon and triangle. So if we select octagon and hit tilt, it'll calculate how much tilt there is on the sensor plane. And there you can see it's come up with a box, and you've got the different HFD measurements across the image, and it tells you at the bottom that the tilt is 0.97 or 22% with a rating of severe, so quite heavy tilting. And just to confirm that, we can close that dialog, pull one of the other images from this year, and then if I just hit F4, which is the function for tilt, it'll do the calculation, and you can see again we've got some heavy tilting. This time it's 23%, so it's very close to the previous one. And just one last check on the newest image, which was taken just a few days ago. And again, hit F4, and you can see again we've got the same approximate tilt percentage, 21%, and the same severe rating. So that's all three images over the last year are all showing the same level of tilt. Now, if you noticed in the dialog for image inspection, there is the option to switch to triangle, and if I do triangle and set it at 0, this is actually the degrees, so the top of the triangle is at the top of the image, and hit tilt this time, we can see it gives us this other triangle with the tilt measurements. And the reason I'm going to have a look at that is because the tilt plate has actually 3 adjusters on it, and hopefully if I line up the tilt plate as close as I can to the image, then when I'm looking at the image I can make it more easy to try and work out which adjusters potentially I need to adjust. So that's the theory, so let's see how it works in practice. So here I am, armed with my micrometer or my digital calipers, and we'll go down to the observatory and get going. Okay, so here we can see I've got the ASI 2600 and then the UFC filter system, and you can see the first black ring is actually the tilt plate adapter for that comes part of the camera, and the screws are on the front of that, which we obviously cannot get access to. What I've done is I've taken the dew shield off the front of the telescope. I've removed the slider from the filter drawer just so it doesn't fall out unexpectedly or end up damaging the filter or the front of the optics, and put that to the side. And I've removed the cables off the front of the camera just so I've got free movement around me. So here we can see the UFC system. So we've got the silver plate that sits on the front of the telescope, and then I've got 2 extension pieces right up against the telescope. Then I've got the Vari-Lock adapter, and then I've got the filter drawer itself, and then we've got the camera attachment. So what I need to do is, here's the tilter, and it's got the S70 dovetail on it, the same as all the other adapters. And what I need to do is remove probably the extension, the larger extension piece, install the tilter and a 5mm extension, I think it was worked out as, and then adjust the Vari-Lock to get the distance back down to what it currently is on the telescope. And then once it's dark, I can then use the Aberration Inspector and Hocus Focus to adjust the Vari-Lock and get the exact back distance correct. So armed with an Allen key, I just need to remove these, or loosen off these small grub screws. I think there's 6 on each adapter, and that'll allow me to then drop this optics off the front of the telescope. I don't want to try and remove this plate because I think it's quite tight at the moment, and I don't want to end up damaging it or knocking it out. So what I can do is I can just adjust the Allen screws if I can get them in, and take it off that way. But what I think I'll do first is remove one of the closer Allen keys to get me a bit more room. So I can just loosen off these grub screws all the way around. And there we go, there's the optics off the camera. Put that face down, and then can I get an Allen key in here? That is the question. I wish I had a ball head Allen key, that would have helped. Careful not to scratch the front of the optics. That's a little bit harder given the position of the clamp ring. There we go. So what I'm going to do now is reattach this onto here and measure the distance from this face to the start of the red of the camera, and then I'll try and make up the adapter piece, the Vari-Locks, to get that distance back again, which will be pretty close to the original dimensions. So using the old digis, I'm going to zero it, and if I just go onto the front end of this plate here, so that's reading approximately 57.78. Bearing in mind that I haven't clamped everything down, 57.78, and the other side 57.79, so all pretty close. So 57.79 is the approximate target dimensions. So if I just take this plate off to begin with, and then put the tilt plate on just to see what we're dealing with, make sure it's fully seated. Now check that measurement again. We're at 52.32. So yeah, I need to add a 5mm extension piece, and my calcs were right, as here we have a 5mm extension piece. So if I put that into there, and I'm not going to get that distance because it's a way back, but that's just to get it approximate. That's 57.62 at a slight angle. 57.9. So we're not far off where I need to be, and there's certainly enough space in the Vari-Lock to make that a final adjustment. So I don't want to have the tilter away back against the metal plate, so what I'm going to do is reposition the adapters on here, and I think I can put the tilter between the Vari-Lock and the telescope, and the filter drawer. So if I take this and just loosen off these, there we go, and we can now put the tilter up against the filter drawer and lock that into place. Now, as I said, I wanted to have the push-pull screws in line with the top of the camera for the top of the triangle, if my theory is right. So if I line that up approximately with the top of the camera and then tighten that down. Okay, I want to be able to get my fingers in to unlock that, and I don't want them too close to the glass. So I'm thinking I'll put the extensions all at the back, and I should still be able to keep my fingers away from the optics. So that's what we'll do. Now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 grub screws to install. Okay. And next we can put the 5mm adapter on the bottom. Put that into the plate and tighten them all down. Alright. And just check the dimensions. 57.5, so pretty close. Okay, and now I can reattach the camera, get the orientation right, and tighten it down. Yeah, I definitely think I'll have to invest in a set of ball head Allen keys. Alright, so there we have it. So tonight I just need to wait for darkness, and we'll pop that in. Alright, so the last thing is obviously the cables and the dew shield. Let's see how it goes later. I'll catch you soon. Alright, so here you join me in the observatory, and I've got the red lights on. That's why the camera looks a little bit funny, just to keep the bugs at bay and the lights down. Connected up all the equipment in Nina. Camera's in the middle of cooling, so it's down at 4.5 degrees almost, so we'll just leave it a little bit longer. The dome's open, the telescope's pointing towards Polaris, and the sky brightness is currently 19.48, so we're not too bad. It'll probably get up to around about 20 over the next couple of hours. So it's reporting a Bortle 7 at the moment, but that'll quickly drop down to the lower end of the 6s towards a 5, depending on exactly how far it will go tonight. So as we said earlier on, the tilt plate and everything's installed, as we see in the earlier part of the video, and tonight we'll do some test shots. We'll check them in ASTAP,
and just see what we can do with the tilt. So I haven't done anything on the scope yet. I was just waiting for the camera to cool down. So obviously I've moved the optical train today, so it's probably out of focus. Tilt's probably all screwed up because I've got no idea what position the tilt plate was in, and yeah, might be a bit of a challenge. So let's wait and see. So we're down at 0 degrees and we're not doing an actual imaging session, so that's probably cold enough in the camera. I probably didn't even need to cool it. Anyway, let's go across to the imaging tab. I don't think I want 1 second. Let's bump this up to 5 seconds, I think. The gain's at the normal 125. And yeah, let's do it. And there's a moth. Oh, well that's a surprise. I can actually see stars, and they look surprisingly good, which I'm extremely surprised about. I expected to see a big blurry mess. Okay, well that's positive. What does the corners look like? Not too bad. Alright, well, so far so good. What we'll do now is we'll run an autofocus. Nice satellite trail coming in. Autofocus. When was that? Was the last autofocus at 3 o'clock this morning. What was I doing this morning? Oh, I was imaging SH2140, I think it was. Just a test. Anyway, that doesn't matter. Right, let's do an autofocus and see what it does. I hear things running around in the bushes outside. As long as they're outside and not coming in here. Okay, so what we'll do now is we will go back to imaging and we'll do another quick. There's a spider hanging down in front of my face. I will turn on save and we'll call this tilt test, and we'll take another exposure. Okay, and now we will go across to ASTAP and we will open and we will deburr the image, and I don't know if I can turn down some of the stretch. There we go, that's a bit better. And now we'll go up to tools, image inspection. Let's do an octagonal test first, tilt, and there we can see it says we've got, oh well, 8% tilt, almost none. So I don't know whether I've just got lucky setting up that tilt plate, installing it, but focus has come in good, tilt's down to 8%, almost none, and all the figures are not far off the median. So I don't even know if I want to touch it. Let's do another test. Let's go back and do a longer exposure, say 15 seconds. Okay, there's a 15-second exposure and we can see the circle that appears on the image train. And let's go across to ASTAP and let's open up that new image. 15 seconds. Now let's do an inspection. Oh, wrong button. Tilt. 0.26. 7%, almost none. Let's do triangle. 5%, almost none, or none. Well, I think I got lucky. That's all I can say. I don't even want to adjust it. Not at this stage, because I don't know how much movement will throw this out.
It's been a couple of days since the last piece. After I did all those initial tests after installing the tilt plate, I went and tried to set up some imaging sessions and do some longer tests, etc. But I ran into some issues with the guiding. I had ended up having to repolar align the mount. I must have knocked everything while I was messing around in the observatory or whatever. So anyway, I've got all that resolved, and then we obviously ran into some clouds and you name it, and then I was busy doing some other stuff, so I didn't get around to doing what I was planning on doing that same evening. Nevertheless, got all that resolved, and I have not touched the tilt plate at all since it's been installed. All the initial screw settings and everything are exactly the same as it was when it was fitted. And I went and did an evening, or as many hours as I could during the night, just to try and get a representation of through an evening of what was going on. So I went and grabbed 242 images, or round about that. There's a couple of stacking images in there as well. But anyway, I grabbed M101 again, just we're using the same reference images. and I grabbed however many it was, and then I checked through them just to see how things are, and they're all pretty much identical. So I grabbed 3 images here just for representation, and you can see in ASTAP the the tilt has dropped down to 9% from the original 23 or whatever it was at the start of the video. And they're all pretty consistent, 9% almost none, 8% almost none, and 9% almost none. So as I said earlier, I was really reluctant to start adjusting and potentially make things worse from the base settings. So at this time, I'm just going to leave it as it is. I want to do some other changes to the scope and try and get rid of some of these reflections and this disc that we see in the images, and we'll take it from there after I've done those changes. Overall, I'm really pleased with how lucky I got, which is dropping in that tilt plate adjuster and seeing a significant improvement already just on the images. And I took those images that I grabbed and I stacked them in ASTAP as well, taking the top 90%, I think it was the setting, and this was the image that came out of a ASTAP. So obviously this has got no calibration frames, no darks, no flats, anything like that. This is just the raw data stacked, and you can see even up in the corners everything is looking pretty good. So I don't even think my back focus is out much, although I will now go back when next clear evening and see if I make a slight tweak to the back spacing using the Varilock adapter on the optical train. But I'm pretty happy how that's looking as it stands at the moment. And once I can try and sort out this ring that we see in the image, then I'll maybe go back and start having a look at some further tweaks to both the back focus and any potential tilt adjustments. But when we're up here in the corners and we can see all these different galaxies, you know, and all the different stars, and everything's looking pretty good, you know, compared to what I was seeing previously. I'm quite happy with how things have come out, and overall I can't really complain. So this was 60-second exposures, I think it was, yeah, 60-second exposures, and even all the raw individual subs are looking not too bad as well, all things considered. So that's where we are as it stands at the moment. That was an improvement on the tilt just by installing the plate from 23% to around about 8 or 9%, and I really can't complain at that at this stage. So that's where I'm going to leave things as at the moment, and we'll see what happens in the next updates once I do any further changes. So in the meantime, thank you very much for watching. Clear skies everyone, and we'll catch you soon.